But I guess the other big political interview of the weekend was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Joe Rogan. I don't know. We talked about the RFK campaign a little bit on this show, but I mean, I don't know. Would it be out of line to call him F. Kennedy? Or I can't say that anymore.
You beat me to it. I was going to say, looks like we know what the R stands for. It was a little more artful, you know.
I mean, I don't know. I'll try to be fair here because, you know, like I guess my attitude on RFK as a protest vote is that, like, for every one seemingly sensible thing he says that I think is worthy of inclusion in a national dialogue, for whatever the fuck that means, his views on almost everything else are just too stupid to countenance. Like, I can't take him seriously, and it's not just because of his voice.
Yeah, but like a protest vote, your protest vote is for a candidate who like meets with Rabbi Shmuley and says the exact same shit that Joe Biden says about Israel. Boring.
Yeah.
That's not just boring and like annoying. It tells me that RFK is stupid enough to think that he will legitimately have a shot. He's so stupid that he's like, oh, I may actually be president, so I need to triangulate for the lobby. That tells me he's a moron.
It seems like he's sort of trying to be a halfway crook when it comes to being a crank, which, like, I don't respect. I think you gotta be a crank or not be a crank. And it seems to me like he's on any good piece of crankery, he's triangulating, but just on the fucking vaccine shit, he can't stop talking about it. And Felix, I agree with you. It's just like, I don't give a shit about the vaccine stuff. I love vaccines. I love all medicine, like you said.
Medicine tastes great.
I take a vaccine a day, and I feel great. But you know, like, but that being said, it's like I'm comfortable in that, so I don't mind people saying it's poison. You know, it's just everyone's got their vices.
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know any. What the fuck?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to know?
Yeah. It's so annoying that this has become like a
we have
debate.
I am not going to do my own research. Fuck you.
Everyone is really stupid, and even dumber people are like, you have to argue with me about what's in the shot, and it's like neither of us know. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, me and another guy who haven't seriously like thought about any hard science for like 20 years since we were like in school, we're going to argue about like oh, is there really mercury in it? I don't fucking know. What's the right amount of mercury to have? I don't know. Whatever I have, it's probably fine. Who gives it? Shut the fuck up. None of us know. Fuck you. What? It's like if there was like a national debate about calculus. Like, fuck off. None of us know. Shut up. And like most of the time when someone is really into this stuff is like, I have my own petri dish and I looked at the vaccine. When someone's like that, but they're like with me on foreign policy and they're like, we need to get rid of NATO. It's like, fine, I will accept you being into that for being with me on these other things. But RFK he's like a regular Democrat at the end of the day with everything else. No matter what he says, his true heart is with status quo and foreign policy. Even if he says these things about empire, he always walks back to the normal position. But he's like, now that I'm done talking about the boring stuff like NATO and the endless wars and BDS, okay, how about this? Let's run through the entire periodic table and we'll talk about what's good and bad to have in your body.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think none of us know. Fuck you.
Look, my attitude on vaccines is that, like, it's my vice. I think it's a harmless vice, but like, don't yuck my yum. But in terms of everything else related to vaccines, it all falls under my very strictly enforced no homework policy. I am not giving myself homework, nor will I even for a second allow anyone to assign me homework.
Look, with vaccines, when I was 23, I smoked the grossest cigarettes ever created because they were $1 cheaper than all the normal ones. They were called Winston's. Normally, when you
good,
see
like a cigarette should.
That's what they say. It's actually disgusting. The only other time I saw Winston's, they were being smoked by like a very like dry looking old man that you would see at the slot section of a casino, not the good slots.
Felix, I smoked Winston's in high school.
They're awful, truly terrible. So but I still,
well, it was I was coming into being a bad kid, and the other bad kids had to school me that like Winston's are bad. Don't smoke this shit. They're bad for you. So I was like, oh, thank God, Marlboro.
I smoked Camels and I smoked Cools for like a year in high school. Though. I don't know why I did that. I don't know what the fuck I was trying to prove. What a weird choice. I didn't even really like them, but anyway, in that time I still like overcame all the poison that's in Winston's that isn't in normal cigarettes. And I ran a really quick mile. I would run pyramid sprints at a 500-pound deadlift. And I feel like if the human body can process Winston's, then it can process autism, mercury, uranium, anything else that's in vaccines. And if you have a vaccine injury, it's because you committed a terrible crime in a previous life. If you're one of the few that's injured by a vaccine, I hate to break it to you, one of your past lives, you were probably a Gilda Ray type figure.
Well,
hate to say.
One of the things that RFK says in interviews about like the vaccine autism link is that he's like, when I was growing up, I don't remember knowing a single autistic person, and now it seems like they're everywhere. And there's a certain, I mean, because like I wasn't alive back then.
Yeah, of course
I wasn't alive back then.
They're everywhere. Look at your campaign.
No, but like what I mean is like when I try to imagine like what it was like for my parents growing up, and I'm just like in my head, like I'm not, in my mind palace, I'm like, yep, no, that checks out. I don't see any autistic kids in my parents' high school. But the thing is, there were tons of autistic people back then. They just didn't know it. Like Dwight Eisenhower was probably autistic. Like probably half of the handsome generals were autistic.
Well, if you were
probably autistic.
If you were autistic and from like a good family and had like a useful, you could have a useful talent, they would just like beat the shit out of you every day until you were like, okay, I have to stop stimming at work. But if you were not from a rich family, then they just killed you. And that's like why he doesn't understand. Like if your dad, like his job was just to go into the coal mine and get dirty, like not even to get coal. He was just the designated, get dirty guy.
The dirt boy
of the coal mine. And he made 3 cents a day, which is what most jobs were like.
It's a good job.
It was that, you could still buy a 4,000 square foot house on that for 35 cents. You were one of his 9 kids and you were autistic. They're throwing you off a cliff.
I guess like in terms of like his triangulating on crankery. Do you remember a couple of weeks back with like the Roger Waters concert in Germany that was like canceled and then uncanceled, and they tried to make a whole big deal about like imagery from the wall that was supposedly like neo-Nazi or anti-Semitic. I mean, it was all garbage, but it was like our RFK was out there defending his boy Roger Waters, and he was like, yeah, like this is not anti-Semitism. I stand with Roger Waters, and then they were like. Mr. Kennedy, he was attacking Israel, and he was like, "What? I thought he was just attacking Jews." and he threw him over the bus. He was like, "Oh no, we like this is inappropriate." Blah blah blah. Like so, I mean,
unforgivable. Unforgivable.
That doesn't show particularly good judgment, in my opinion. And I guess like
Fuck
the only I mean, because if to say that that Pink Floyd's The Wall is like a fascist document is just like it's too stupid to even consider. So the fact that you either like believe that or were willing to like walk it back and lie about that is not particularly encouraging. And the other thing I'll say that's not particularly encouraging about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is that that David Sachs asshole was holding a big fundraiser for him, and it's like, look. Everyone needs money to run for office, but like when I think about all of the other things David Sachs has endorsed or tried to sell the world, like it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in the RFK Jr. presidential campaign
or RFK. Period. I mean, if we're categorizing RFK as another David Sachs investment, he may die in the next week. That's very possible, and thank God, like. I don't want him to die. Like, I don't want his family to be sad or anything like that. His family seems lovely, but less people will be going, You need to look at the molecules in fucking vaccines. That's, sometimes bad stuff needs to happen.
I mean, the fact that this stuff is like is now just assumed by millions of people to be a matter for public deliberation is a sign that the entire edifice of like authority has collapsed. And that seems like a way bigger deal, because if that's the case, if like the basic processes that are supposed to create like publicly agreed upon understandings of like scientific phenomenon and medical policies, if that is totally untrustworthy for millions of people, and they demand that we do public politicized discussions of stuff that regular people do not know anything about, you're not getting closer to the truth. You are showing that is an impossibility at this point, because you can't even address the fundamental collapse of the institutions. You can't even point to the real foundational cracks, like the fact that nobody trusts medicine because it's a fucking giant money-making operation that leaves people broke and sick no matter what they do. And so instead of the inability to address that at all means there's got to be some realm we think that we could debate on, and it ends up being a place that is the least politically useful because it's the least accessible to regular people. But we've all convinced ourselves that we could do the research.
Yeah,
we don't know anything.
It's the perfect mechanism to keep everything in status quo, because this is probably the dumbest people have been since like the year 1100.
Yes.
It's pretty much
absolutely.
Like it's the same too. It's like we have witches, we have people who think they can move the moon. Like 40% of Americans think the devil is actively pursuing them in their lives. I saw a post the other day. This was insane. This was like 10 years ago. If you said this, you would rightfully be killed by a local police department. But now it's cool to say. This guy was like, hey, hello, fellow Catholics. I've been having visions of Joan of Arc. Can anyone tell me what this means? And all the most liked replies were like, what? This is almost certainly the devil trying to fool you. Like it was tech support. Like it's like you go on Reddit when there's something wrong with your graphics card. That's what the thread was like. And it's like, watch it, run a virus scan, get the devil out of there. And to me, it's like, you people are fucking insane. Like this would be insane 5 years ago. Like everyone would be like, you're all crackheads.
Wait a second. So this person says like, I believe like the Holy Spirit is sending me visions of Joan of Arc, or that I am Joan of Arc reborn or something like that. What do I do? Well, what the fuck? I think it'd be pretty self-evident. Pick up the sword and fight the British.
Well, he was saying visions of Joan of Arc.
Okay.
And
well, what did
he was resoundingly told it was the devil trying to trick him. And that's like 30% of Americans. 40% are like, no, that's stupid. Anyway, me and my friends are casting a spell to protect the moon. And then there's like a QAnon people where it's like Ryan O'Neal is trapped inside a crystal and we have to get his soul to battle Neville Chamberlain and Tron. and it's the dumbest populace ever. And you take that 100% and it's like, okay, all of these disparate factions, all of you, let's debate about biochemistry. Horrible.
Well, I saw this guy. I saw a post this weekend that was, I think it was actually a Republican politician, and it was like side-by-side photos of Joe Rogan shirtless and this like immunologist doctor that's become the new villain of all this. I don't know who this guy is. I don't really want to, again, I don't care, not looking into it, but he's sort of a dorky looking guy who has a bow tie and glasses and looks like sort of a goofy, like, a goofy nerd. And they were like, who do you trust more with, your health? I know where I'm going. And it's like, well, I trust Joe Rogan more on like workout advice, which is like a part of health, but like much past that, I'm afraid I'm still trusting someone with a PhD. And I don't know what that means, but like I didn't get a PhD, and I guess that's an appeal to authority. but it's what I'm sticking with. It's just what I'm sticking with.
Yeah, because the alternative is doing all your own homework and then somehow like dying from drinking bleach anyway.
Joe Rogan's organs are the size of beach balls. He looks at like he is only not dead because he's going to a steroid doctor. So, some doctors are good, I guess. If it's a steroid doctor, it's good. But if it's a a vaccine doctor, he should be killed. I would like they posted a shirtless picture of Joe Rogan who has like the worst gear gut out of anyone, and they're like the obvious answer is that you're supposed to take medical advice from him. I don't get it.
Well, after look, I've ripped RFK now, so like I'm gonna pull it back here, and I'm just gonna say, equally entertaining to me is all of the consternation and hysteria among the Biden Democrats and like the Democratic Party that like this is a threat to our democracy. This is he's being funded by right-wing billionaires, and he's spreading lies and misinformation, and this is all just a plot or whatever. And it's just like, look, if that's the case and this is a threat to Biden and the Democratic parties, it's like, well, A, self-inflicted, because every poll says that Biden, like, no one wants him to run for president. And also, like, once again, not my problem. Not my problem. Just enjoy the show. It's going to be fun.
You guys picked this 1,000-year-old man because you were like, we have to get Biden. He's the most electable. And then like 3 years later, it's like, guys, we have terrible news. The least charismatic man ever is destroying his popularity. RFK Jr. is destroying Biden's presidency, which it's not even that. Like RFK Jr. is not doing that, but it's like that would not, if he really was the most electable guy, that would not be a concern.
Yeah, you'd not be sweating it. I mean, it goes to, and the hysteria with which they freak out about it is the suppressed horror that they feel because they really do believe a untenable thing, which is that the Democratic Party is the last line of defense against complete destruction of all democratic institutions, the rise of fascism, and yet that institution, the Democratic Party, is incapable of stopping an 80-year-old senile man with 40% approval rating from risking an election. They can't. There's nothing within the party that can stop this from happening as long as he wants it, and that's their hope. That is that is what the institution that they've invested their entire belief in a future in, and it is that fundamentally non-functional. Of course, they're going to scream at anybody who reminds them of that fact.
And like I'm not. I'm not the voting cops here, but like as far as protest votes go, I'm going with the good Dr. Cornel West, just simply for no other reason than I want to be referred to as Brother Will sometime in the future, perhaps in an interview on this show.
Cornel West is an infinitely better choice than RFK Jr. Even if he is running in the Green Party, yes, he's not making me do any homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there needs to be this line in the sand against people telling you to learn how to do science.
Yeah,
I didn't do that in high school. You're not going to get me to do it now.
And he's he's never turned his back on Roger Waters. That I do know.